and welcome to episode 7 now. We've been away for a while, but we've been busy. We were in Panama checking things out and touring the world, went to Kuala Lumpur and a few other things. But that doesn't mean we didn't have you in mind. Anyway, you know who we are. We also have our guest Harry with us today.
Yeah, here again.
Must have done something to impress you, or maybe it was somebody forced your hand.
I think a bit of both.
Anyway, since we last spoke, there's been a lot of issues going on in the world. Since this is the Politics As Usual podcast, I guess we'll start with the main issue of the moment, the Panama Papers leak. So I'm assuming everyone knows what that's about, given how prominently it's in the news at the moment, so I'm not going to bother giving an explanation of what it is. Scoop, Mr. Mohsin, what are your views on it so far?
It came a little left field, just out of the blue, and then there was thousands apparently of reporters worldwide who have investigated the matter to see exactly who's involved, and it's literally everybody's implicated. There's hardly an honest politician out there, basically. And with the Panama thing, there's a few politicians who are on there, but I think they just didn't use the Panama, they used maybe other countries. So I'm looking forward to other hackings taking place to have more information come out, to be honest. This was the fourth largest offshore law firm.
That's right.
Fonseca or something, whatever the name was. So 3, 2, and 1. I'm looking forward to them getting hacked as well, actually. So far,
I guess they're going to up their security now.
Well, so far you've had one prime minister forced out of his position in Iceland.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
And in Pakistan, the prime minister there.
I didn't hear about this.
The prime minister there, he's just claiming it's all false and it's a conspiracy against him.
Don't get happy, he hasn't stepped down.
Oh, okay.
He'll never step down. David Cameron's father was implicated.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously he died a few years ago. But David Cameron initially, he claimed he had nothing to do with it, and he'd never benefited from it. And then it came out, well, actually, yeah, he did.
Well, actually, initially he said it's none of your business to people. He basically said words to that extent. And then, he's realised he's cocked up in what he said.
Yeah.
So then he comes up with a different view. And he says, well, that was my father, it wasn't me.
He also said that he has no offshore accounts, and he only has one house, his son's rent, while he's living on Downing Street, and all his savings, the taxes paid, etc. What he didn't mention, which I think is interesting, is whether he has any offshore accounts or companies which are not in his name. Somebody else's name.
Proxies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that going on. There's as an example, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, there's no way he only has all his money all stuck in one country, Panama.
No chance.
They got to be around in different places, but they only got one specific country's wealth information. And it's not even in his name, it's in his children's name.
Yeah, and so that's why he said, well, I ain't got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
speak to my son, it's his, not mine.
And the other thing is, what do they call that when it gets transfer money and the Bank of England issues you like a piece of paper to say it's worth 10,000 or whatever. A bond, yeah. Once it gets transferred into bonds, you don't know where that money come from, you don't know who it belongs to, it's just the person who possesses the bond is the one who rightfully is the owner of that money. Now, does David Cameron or anybody like that, how many of them actually have bonds where money was transferred into bonds, so you can't track it?
Yeah, I don't know.
So there's a lot of it did throw up a lot of interesting things. We thought initially that we were living in a very
transparent.
society, etc. None of the politicians here would be involved.
Well, but did we? This is what I'm questioning.
We didn't have any proof.
We didn't have proof. So look, so Cameron, he had what I said before as his initial view. Then he starts saying, "Oh, I did have an investment in my father's what was it called, his fund scheme or hedge fund or whatever it was, but then I sold my shares in it before I became PM." That's what he says.
Yeah.
And now he's saying, I should have handled this a lot better. I made a mistake. It's not been a great week. It's not the fault of number 10 Downing Street, and it's not the fault of the government. Blame me. That's what he's now saying.
And that was after protesters outside of number 10.
Yeah. And the protesters are saying, look, we can't. This has shown, or rather, I think it's Jeremy Corbyn that said, this demonstrates the fact that he's not reliable. He's not a person of integrity.
Yeah, so a vote of no confidence they're calling for, or they're calling for him to step down. Now, the issue with that is not really going to step down. It's not really as bad as people are making out to be on David Cameron's part, because it's not against the law.
Yeah,
he's not doing anything against the law.
Well, the thing is this, though, there is an element of hypocrisy, because this is the same government that have been going around saying, we need to make sure that we heavily crack down on people who have companies set up in these offshore tax havens.
That's all rhetoric. It's their own fathers who have those companies, and it's their own friends and relatives who have those companies. It's not going to be people who vote for, let's say, the Labour Party or the Liberal Democrats or the Green Party or SNP, etc. The people who have these offshore accounts and are benefiting from this type of thing, they're normally voting for the Conservative Party.
For a reason.
Yeah, the upper middle class. And so the issue with David Cameron here is being confounded by the fact that people are just sick and tired of some of the policies coming out, especially after the budget, tax cuts for the rich, benefits being wound down for the elderly. There's not much benefits being handed out to the disabled people either, and NHS is being privatised.
Yeah,
more and more. So, and we're heading towards probably in another few years it'll be a completely private NHS. So all these things are confounding together. People are now using Panama as an excuse. Look, get out of here because of that.
It's given some impetus and some fuel.
I think people should not forget why they actually hate him. It's Panama thing isn't a big deal.
No, exactly. It does risk people being distracted by the bigger picture. Now, what I'd say to a lot of the protesters who are protesting at the moment, because one of the things they're saying is that, as I said before, this is demonstrating that he can't be trusted. Well, how many people actually have trust in politicians? If you go around asking people if they trust politicians, most of them will say they don't trust politicians. And if that's the case, why don't you do something about that? Why don't you take on the system and rise against the system? Because that's what needs to be challenged. Well,
is it a rise against the system that's required, or is it you need trustworthy politicians entering the field, and our vote should go to the trustworthy politicians? You can't blame David Cameron. It was the British people that put him in that position. So how are we going to now turn around and say we want you gone? I mean, I didn't vote for him, but obviously a majority of people did. So it was the will of the people. They were not behind the previous candidates.
I guess we need to explore what we mean by the system. Do I know what I mean by it? Well, I'm referring to the entire propaganda machine that controls people's thoughts and ultimately who they vote for. Take for instance Bernie Sanders, right? Everything he says, his policies, they make sense, but people have this view that it's just not realistic and it's not achievable. And it can't be done. And a lot of this is driven by media. It's happening to Jeremy Corbyn as well.
Yeah, the propaganda machine is kind of aligned against them, and the propaganda machine, which is the media, is aligned against the normal person, technically then, by extension. And if we don't have alternative media, and if we don't start picking out the faults in the propaganda machine, we're going to fall for, we're going to end up voting for the Tory government again and give them a third term and just say, please just take everything,
I don't know. World of politics has always been a murky world, but it's been murky because of the characters, the shady characters in it.
Yeah.
Maybe there does need to be something in the system that roots these guys out.
I think going back to the original topic, Panama Papers, right? I think we're going a bit off topic here. My main issue with that is, again, the richer get richer, the poorer getting poorer. Now, I work within the housing industry, and I know how much the cuts have affected people working within our industry, because recently we've made redundancies of, I think it was about 150, 200 people.
Yeah.
Now, with certain people, tax avoidance, and then the budget cuts as well, it's just increasing that gap. But for me, that's the main issue. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And to be honest with you,
that's again a systematic issue.
Yeah.
Right, so do you know what capitalism is?
Yeah.
Right? Do you know what the real definition should be of capitalism?
Go on, enlighten me.
The rich using the poor as their resource to get richer, and let the poor get poorer, and the middle class, people like us who work our socks off and pay the taxes, just keep everything running.
Yeah.
That's what capitalism is. And that's the system. And unless that's challenged, and we've talked about this in one of our videos that we did.
Yeah, I mean, the only one challenging capitalism now in America is Bernie Sanders, and potentially in this country, Jeremy Corbyn. We need to see some of his policies come out more. But he's not anti-capitalist, he's more left of capitalism.
Yeah. I mean, wealth generation is a great thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's good, it benefits everyone. And, face facts, under the capitalism, let's say, era, there's been a number of advancements, right? Man's been to space, landed on the moon, there's been all sorts of technological breakthroughs, science is booming, da-da-da-da. But these companies that do everything, the mentality that they have, I know because I work for a massive company, is that nothing is unachievable. And then all of a sudden, when somebody like Bernie Sanders is coming, or Jeremy Corbyn, oh no, sorry, that's not achievable.
That is true.
What happened to your mentality?
Yeah. Now, did they think that the Panama Papers, what they exposed and kind of forced into our face, if you will, is if we have an issue with the budget cuts to the elderly, the budget cuts to the disabled, as in those who are most vulnerable in our society, which we are starting to have more and more under this government, and we have issues with the budget cuts to the NHS, the privatisation of the NHS, etc., because we are told that there's not enough money to put towards them because there's not enough resources, etc. The reason there's not enough money is because of these tax havens like Panama, where all the money is being sent overseas by the rich elite. Instead of paying a legitimate tax on it, they get taxed almost 0 or 1% or something along those lines, while we pay 20-30% in our taxes.
Yeah, speaking of taxes, sorry to go off track again, Harry.
Go ahead.
Well, so I was in Singapore recently.
Yeah.
That country runs like clockwork. Everything's orderly, it's really, really clean. Everyone seems to be obeying the law. I can't say if people are happy or not, because materialism is just like it is the official state religion. But everyone seems to be living a really high quality of life, even your street sweeper. I met a taxi driver, and he was saying that he can afford going on holiday every year twice. Government subsidise the citizens so that they can actually live there, because it's an expensive place. And I looked into how much they're actually taxed. 7%.
7%. I think Singapore is another tax haven. It's probably the number 2 or number 1. There's a big potential. Bahrain is a tax haven.
Yeah.
And it's probably much more than Panama. Panama literally came out left field because didn't have a clue that they were a tax haven. You wouldn't think that would be a country that you'd put your money. Well, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, maybe even Saudi Arabia and Singapore. Definitely, there's money being hidden there by the elite. Definitely. So.
Anyway, other issues. What's been going on in the States?
Donald Trump lost one state recently. The whole kind of Republican establishment has aligned against him, and they are conspiring against him. They don't want him to be their candidate. You can't really blame him. He's the downfall of the Republican Party, I think. But it was one state where there's a heavy amount of evangelicals.
Yeah.
And so he was bound to lose that state because Ted Cruz is an evangelical and he can kind of manipulate and use that particular type of language to get the votes.
Where was that again? Was it Wisconsin or was it the Colorado one that happened recently?
Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yeah, and
was it? I don't think the Colorado one's happened yet. I think.
What's the day today? I think that there's something today.
I think that's.
And then there's another one on the New York one is a big one. I think it's on the 19th of this month.
Oh, okay.
And the New York one, there's so many delegates from either side available, and from the Democratic side, it's actually become a battle now. It's become a battlefield. There's a potential of Bernie Sanders kind of surging past Hillary Clinton if he wins a few states big, and he's won the last 4. I think out of the last 9, he's won 8, and out of one of the previous ones that he had lost, he actually ended up winning it because there's something funny that happened with the counting and the caucus, and some of the delegates didn't turn up because they don't really believe in Hillary Clinton, and there's a whole mess going on there. But there's a battle on the Democratic side. I think it's Trump versus someone, but we don't know who that someone is yet. It's not decided whether it's Hillary or whether it is Bernie Sanders. But the establishment media has already decided. They're not even mentioning Bernie Sanders' name yet. And they're conspiring against it.
Hillary is the one for them.
There was something interesting that happened. Well, not interesting, something unfortunate that took place in Scotland just a few weeks ago. The killing of a young man, a shopkeeper. I think he was about 40 years old or something.
I think it was 30 odds, actually.
Nearing his 40s.
Yeah.
And he was killed by some guy from Bradford who drove up all the way to Scotland just to kill him. And the reason was blasphemy.
Elaborate on that, please.
The guy who killed him claims that
So this was Asad Shah, right?
The Asad Shah killing, yeah. Asad Shah was claiming to be a prophet.
Right.
And he was from a particular movement started in the Indo-Pak called the Qadiani movement, who are universally not accepted as Muslims, even though they would like to be accepted as Muslims, but it's actually part of the Pakistani law that they're not to be considered as Muslims.
And that's just a classification thing, right?
It's just a classification,
It's not meant to be anything that's, discriminatory or anything like that. Although discrimination, unfortunately, does take place, that's a different thing. I just thought I'd clarify that.
And so this bloke from Bradford drove all the way up because he'd seen Asad Shah's Facebook post.
So this bloke, his name is Tanveer Ahmed. Yeah, he's in his 30s actually. He's 32, and I think
Asad Shah
was
early
40, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. I had to clarify that.
Yeah, and
remembered it.
So the bloke from Bradford basically drives up, kills him, and then hands himself into the police or something.
Yeah.
And he says
this was bizarre. This.
Yeah, and the reason he says is because it was Asad Shah had committed blasphemy by claiming to be a prophet, etc. And he said he had a dream, and he met somebody in a dream, and that person encouraged him to kill or something. So, I mean, the guy who killed Asad Shah is a mental case himself, to be honest, in my eyes. Because, normal people don't have dreams inspiring them to kill other people. I mean, I think Hitler also had this type of situation. And
I think Trump has it as well.
I mean, if you look past the dream, for someone to go all that way by himself because of something he's seen on Facebook
Yeah.
to go and kill a person. There has to be something wrong with you.
Right, yeah.
There seriously has to. Figure out the dream for me personally. You seeing something on Facebook,
Yeah.
you not agreed with, you think it was blasphemous, and you tried to drive up all by yourself. Did anybody even know? Did he mention this to anybody, or?
I think he did mention to a group of his close friends, but it's being kept under wraps. The media hasn't, not a lot of information has come out in the media, but a lot of information is coming out on social media. And the information on social media, now you can't believe it and take it off face value, but because there's so many people saying the same thing, you kind of just build a picture in your mind thinking, right, I know what's going on. The other thing is, this guy, he comes from a quote-unquote moderate interpretation of Islam, yet his interpretation of Islam allows for them to kill people who have, in their eyes, committed blasphemy, and they don't have to take it to the court or take it through the legal system, even in countries where there are blasphemy laws in place. So as in Pakistan, as an example, there are blasphemy laws, and his interpretation of the religion allows for people to carry out extrajudicial killings.
Yeah. So completely overlook the fact that there is a system of governance here, and their law doesn't apply here.
Yeah, so it set up a really, I think, interesting conversation within the Muslim community in this country.
Yeah, did you see the statement that was issued via
his solicitor?
His solicitor, did you see that?
Yeah.
That was bizarre.
I
think that sort of highlights your view that he's a bit nutty.
What did
the statement read, this all happened for one reason, know the issues, know the intentions. It basically clarifies that it's nothing to do with the fact that people were celebrating Easter on the day. I love Christians.
The context behind that is Asad Shah had put on his Facebook, Happy Easter to all the Christians, etc.
Yeah.
So the media first said maybe he was killed because he put this statement up in favour of Christians, and so he clarified it's got nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and then he comes on to his motivation saying Asad Shah disrespected the messenger of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because he claimed to be a prophet himself. Then he says, when 1400 years ago the Prophet of Islam said that I am the final messenger of Allah, there is no more prophets or messengers from God after me. I'm leaving you the final Quran, there's no changes, it's the final book, and this is the final completion of Islam. So therefore I killed him.
I mean, you know what he's saying about the finality of the Prophet, etc. I believe that, you believe that.
Yeah.
Every Muslim believes that. But it doesn't mean that Muslims then justify the murder of people who don't believe that, because that's exactly what ISIS does.
Exactly.
There's no difference. ISIS kill people because in their mind, or the way they put it across, is because people don't agree with Islam the way they agree with Islam, or the way they portray Islam, so therefore those people are worthy of being killed. And this individual did the same thing.
Yeah, there's plenty of people in the world who don't believe in Islam. And what if amongst them somebody decides to be a prophet?
Yeah, you get cult leaders all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You get cult leaders all the time.
It's happened throughout history.
Recently as well, not long ago, there's been a few famous cases in the late 80s and early 90s of cult leaders. I don't think they claimed to be prophets, but they did claim to have spoken to God, etc. Things like that. So I mean, the type of prophecy or whatever. Do you go and kill everyone? It's ridiculous.
So why do you think this happened then? Why now?
Right, there was a famous case in Pakistan where a person called Mumtaz Qadri killed the minister of Punjab. Was it the governor? The governor of Punjab, Salman Taseer. Now the claim was that Salman Taseer had committed blasphemy because he was calling for the blasphemy law to either be changed or to be negated altogether, and it should no longer exist, etc. So I mean, he was of a more secular viewpoint. Fair enough, he has his right to his opinion. Then a group of so-called scholars came out and said, well, this is an illegitimate view, and this person has committed blasphemy, he's disrespected the Prophet. And Salman Taseer came out and said, no, I would never do anything like that. My intention was never to disrespect the religion or the Prophet or anything like that. I was just saying that this law is being abused, which it is being abused. Yeah, and it has been abused historically. And the very next day, I think 2 days after he put that statement out saying, I would never disrespect and that was not my intentions, he was killed by his own security guard. His own security guard, who was paid by the government to look after him, to protect him, ended up killing him. And the reason he killed him, according to the court papers, was because he was convinced to do so indirectly by one of the speeches of the clerics that he'd gone to listen to. That cleric was brought to court and asked, did you incite this violence? Do you agree that he should have been killed, etc.? When he went to court, that cleric said, I've got nothing to do with this. I don't know what happened here.
I ain't got nothing to do with it.
I don't know what happened, etc. So the cleric copped out of it. And I've seen the video of that cleric saying about this Salman Taseer that was killed, where he said, we're going to kill you, we're going to shoot you like a dog, we're going to put so many bullets in you, people will not recognize your body, etc. That's exactly what happened just a few weeks after he gave that speech. So I mean, it kind of makes you think like, wait, how did they let this cleric get away with it? They should have killed him as well. So anyway, later on, fast forward a few years, Mumtaz Qadri was in prison, etc. And because the law in that country dictates that somebody who murders is punished by murder, by capital punishment as well, or there can be something called blood money. The government didn't allow blood money. Instead, they demanded that he be given capital punishment, and then capital punishment was given. Now, the people who supported that cleric and that kind of understanding of the religion, worldwide there was this kind of thing where they were saying, how dare you kill the killer of Salman Taseer?
Yeah.
So why are you killing the killer?
And then you started getting loads of speeches coming out and people talking in defence of the whole situation, and some well-known personalities in the UK who were.
But do you think this is saying a dangerous?
What was well-known personalities in the UK? What did they say?
So the basic premise was that the minister, he committed outright blasphemy, and there's no argument that it is blasphemy. That's the first issue, and clearly there is an argument, and they didn't even discuss the fact that where there's an allegation placed on somebody, it has to go through due process. It has to be proven to be the case, and there has to be sufficient evidence, and it has to be weighed up by the courts. Ignore all of that. They go straight to the fact that this poor guy, as they portrayed him, was subjected to provocation by the minister. So the minister kept on provoking him by saying all these things that were obviously, in their view, wrong, and they're going to affect any believer, because they're so filthy, vile language used against the Prophet, or the Quran, or the text. So they basically use what is a flimsy argument that he was provoked, so then he killed him. What do you expect?
So, another way of putting that argument is, Your Honour, I killed him because I got very angry. That's just another way of saying provocation. Now, that same individual and a few individuals were asked, by Muslims in this country, well, what about Charlie Hebdo?
Yeah.
And their response was, well, look, with Charlie Hebdo, the ISIS guys who killed the Charlie Hebdo staff, etc., they did so because of the same reason, because of provocation, because of blasphemy, but we don't accept ISIS as Muslim, which personally I don't accept ISIS as Muslim as well, but that's not, a solid enough argument in my mind. There should be a different argument. But then what I thought was, well, what if it wasn't ISIS that did Charlie Hebdo and it was just a normal Muslim? Fast forward a few weeks, a Muslim from their same interpretation of the religion goes ahead and kills someone because of blasphemy. Now I would like to see these same scholars come out and either support it. I mean, if you support it, fair enough, we live in freedom of speech, etc. Let's see your arguments of provocation now. Either that or come out and condemn it outright, but I would like to see all these scholars come out and take a position on it. I don't like the whole let's sit back and wait for it to all play over and we'll just
forget about it and walk away.
Yeah, but you think the issue in Pakistan where he killed the minister, do you think that's set a dangerous precedence now?
It
for people
has.
to take.
Of course.
Of course it is, yeah.
Of course.
That's exactly the precedent it set was what happened here. As in the guy from Bradford goes all the way to. I mean that's a drive and a half as well. I mean 2-3 hours of a drive.
You're dedicated.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Anyway, on that note, we'll end until next time. See you later.
So yeah.